computer.
Yep.
All right. And I will give you the host right, Ali, but you would have to then let people in.
Okay.
You let me make you host. And please introduce yourself so people know who you are and what all you have done in the past, like training and stuff, which is very impressive. I am super impressed. So please go ahead.
Of course. So, yeah, assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Ali Rizwan. I am in the BI space. I work with a lot of healthcare clients building data warehousing applications. I've been doing it for the past 17, 18 years now. Starting my career off with Accenture, kind of worked with various companies like Teradata, and then focused more on the Microsoft space, and then within Microsoft, within the healthcare space, within Epic. So a lot of my stuff and experience has been both kind of with organizations need to kind of get data into a data warehouse, and then after that, once that data is in a data warehouse, then you go ahead and you want to do analytics and reports, your Power BI, Tableau, kind of click new dashboards, or back in the day was SSRS. So I've worked pretty much along the whole spectrum. The session today is for those of you that are certainly on the beginner side, or that are like looking into analytics or they know that, hey, SQL is a language that kind of comes up, that's important. Kind of my goal is to just give two things. One is to give an intro, but also to make, like, demystify it a little bit, if at all possible, to make it's a simple language. SQL is not that hard. So I want to make sure we kind of go ahead and we do an exercise or two, so that as we by the end of this hour, you guys have some I'd say like a base foundation of something to build on top of later, right? So this is going to be a session where you guys can code. So I'm going to post, if you guys have a browser, basically, you guys don't need to install anything. There's a browser. You guys can, it's SQLiteonline.com. If you want to follow along some of the coding exercises, first I'll do a little bit of an intro. Then if you follow along in some of the coding exercise, you guys can kind of do that, click on it, and on the and you're able to like write code and stuff, against it. So can I actually, should we share my screen? Okay. So here, let me go into this here slide. So this is the link to the site. Okay, guys. So before we get started, let me kind of go a little bit of an intro of SQL. Kind of go into little presentation mode. Kind of why we use SQL. I'll highlight a few of the key concepts that we're going to cover, and I'll touch upon some advanced concepts that you guys may not know, like may not cover, but we may not cover here, but we can. It's good to know about it. So if we do like a future session, we can go ahead and kind of cover those advanced topics later. So then I'll talk about a scenario that, the live coding exercise I said we'll do. We'll cover a few scenarios around that. So any questions so far? Any kind of folks in the audience, if you have any kind of preconceived notions or things you wanted to get out of it, maybe kind of post it in the chat or kind of unmute yourself. Feel free to say it out loud. Okay. That is cool. So I guess with that, I will kind of talk a little bit about the kind of the, why we use SQL. So SQL is used to basically interact with relational databases. When we talk about when we talk about relational databases, what do we mean by a relational database? If you think about a relational database, think about it as a bunch of tables. I think Hannah, you raise your hand.
Yeah, there is a question in the chat, Ali, regarding if
Okay.
not browser, what other tools would you use to do practice?
So I'm mainly my background is more on the Microsoft side. I think if I let me assume, I'm going to assume the question is what platform to focus on, right? If I was to rephrase this question, Microsoft, Oracle, like what platform should I do? So modern day platforms, it's really the question is the cloud platforms, right? You have your Azure, you have your AWS, you have your Snowflake. I would, if I was to make a choice, I would say either do Microsoft SQL Server, but that would be like my second. My number one, I would say do Snowflake, right? So I'm going to type that in the chat if somebody wants to search. Snowflake is like the mother of all databases. They're like a leader. And if you haven't heard about it, if you Google it, search it up, this is a very kind of like a powerful platform. It's basically a totally cloud-based database. Simply, I'll explain it in that when you guys think about so let's say 10 years ago when you guys used to buy a laptop, right? Or 5 years ago, or even now you buy a laptop. Typically your laptop has memory and some storage, right? It has some RAM, how much RAM do you want? And it's got some hard disk storage on your machine. So like right now I'm on a laptop. This brick that I'm holding right now. This laptop has fixed amount of storage and RAM. Snowflake, and why that concept is important is that Snowflake it has made it so easy where you can scale out, where you don't have to worry about storage as RAM as much. The more compute you need, the more things you can throw at it. So either way, look up Snowflake, and if you want to practice kind of SQL in that, you can spin up like an account and use it to practice. With that, the back to SQL. So the thing with SQL is that it's used to interact with databases. And what are databases? Databases essentially, when we're talking about databases and we talk about SQL, we're talking about a bunch of tables, right? So what's a table? You can think of a table in the most simplest format. Think of it like an Excel spreadsheet, right? You have an Excel spreadsheet that has certain columns and has certain rows. That construct, two-dimensional rows and columns, that's essentially a table. And and most organizations, when they store data, they have a bunch of tables. And think of SQL that, hey, I need to write code to take data out of those tables, right? So like an Excel spreadsheet, think there's a bunch of Excel sheets. Each one of those is a table. And then when I'm writing SQL, it's like, I need some data from one sheet. I need some data from another sheet. I need some data from another sheet and a certain row and a certain column. SQL lets you kind of weave that together. Obviously, I'm oversimplifying it, but it lets you weave all that together to kind of extract data out of it, either actually to store data into that database and also retrieve data out of it. So that's a very simple explanation. I'm not getting into like the server architectures behind the scene, how databases scale. But at the very simple, I think a good analogy for a database and a table is Excel, because it's more easy to visualize, and table being an Excel sheet, right? So, hopefully as you guys are done through the end of this session, you'll guys have a better understanding of what I mean by those terms and concepts. So so key concept that we'll talk about are like I talked about here. Hey, we're going to create a table with kind of rows and columns. In the session today, we're actually going to create a table. Okay, we'll walk through a create table statement and how to do it. Now, and obviously within that table, you can have many types of data. We'll talk about some of the types of data that you can store in a database. And a data type is basically just that, right? It's a type of data that you can store in a database. You can have, numbers, letters, you can have dates, so which are primarily cover most of the concepts. And we'll walk through that, creating a table, the data types that are inside a table that's stored, how to insert data. We'll do a select statement on top of a data, and then we'll do a something with a where clause, and then we'll do like a quick join. Give me just a second. Give 1 second here.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Hannah Rashid. I am one of the admins of Muslim Professional Slack community. And I would highly encourage everyone to share their LinkedIn profile in the chat. There are almost 21 attendees today. I would say 19 attendees other than me and Ali Rizwan. So I highly encourage that you guys share your LinkedIn profile in the chat and connect with each other organically, build a relationship so you have an accountability partner when you are trying to learn these skills, and you can learn from each other by networking with each other. So please go ahead and share. Thank you.
Of course. So these are the concepts I'm hoping we can kind of cover, in this session. And this is going to be like a crash course, guys. This is like this stuff, these concepts, it might take you like 3-4 weeks in a college course. Like when I took introduction to relational database, take you a few weeks to kind of cover these. And granted, I'm taking out certain concepts, but it's just to give you guys like a little bit of a flavor. I believe Fatma or Panir. Fatma, raise your hand.
Hi, just a quick question that I need to ask. Do we interact while we are hearing from you, or do we just listen to you? I'm just curious.
So what we'll do, do you have the link that I shared in the chat, like way up top? We will basically
Okay.
there's a link I shared with this site, SQL Online. We will be doing some demos here, right?
Okay.
So we'll be able to do some live interactions here.
Okay, perfect then. Thank you.
Yeah. So with that, other concepts that we won't really cover in the session today about aggregation, we'll do a simple inner join and I'll explain what that is. We won't talk about left, right, outer joins, windowing functions, CTs. Those are much more advanced topics you cover in a, we can possibly do later on. But with that, I'll go into a scenario. So this is basically, like I said, these are two tables. There's, like I said, most of the data that you have, within companies, it's stored within databases, and within databases, you've got, tables, right? So, and when organizations, they have analysis they need to do. So I've got a customer table here, with a customer ID, 1, 2, 3, 4, Ali, John, Michael, Jerry, whatever. They've got their addresses. We've got customer, orders that they've placed, which are in a separate table. I'm not covering data modeling, why you would have, customer in one table and orders in a separate table. That's a little bit beyond this conversation. There's different architectures and theories around that. But let's just assume, you've got a customer table and you've got an order table where you've got an order ID. So customer Michael can have 2 orders that they place, on February 1st, March 1st for item 3, item 1. Then, Ali placed an order, this is the order for item 1 on January 1st, and John placed an item for item 2 on January 2nd, right? Like, this is like pretty much any commercial enterprise that's running a database, they're going to have some data like this, right? So some things are very straightforward in here from the list that I mentioned here. When I say create table, basically each of these is a table. So we'll walk through creating these. I talked about data types, as I mentioned, an order ID, that we've got numbers here, we've got letters and numbers together, we've got dates in here, right? So when we talk about data types, that's what we mean, that, hey, there's different types of data we're saving here. We talked about inserting data. Just with this example, we'll walk through how to do, insertion of data here. We talked about selecting it, we'll do select, we'll do, filtering on this data. And then this topic here, join, this is like a little bit of an advanced topic to do like on an hour-long session. But I want to talk about this. I think it's like important because it's really the foundation of querying and databases, right? Because if you guys remember, we talk about databases, but you may have heard the concept of a relational databases, right? Relational databases, what RDBMS, a relational database management system. When we say relational data, what do we mean, right? It's the different tables that have relationships with each other. Those relationships, to get data out of different tables that have different relationships, we use something called joins, right? So when we talk about relational databases, joins are like a very, very fundamental concept. And I'll cover, I'll cover the concept of an inner join and what an inner join basically is that I've got a customer ID here and I've got a customer ID here, right? If I want to know, hey, which customer lives in Salina, all that data is in this information, right? But if I want to know which customer that lives in Salina, how many orders does it have, how many orders were placed by customers that lived in Salina, right? The customer table doesn't have this information. I have to go to the order table to get that, right? So if I want to know just, hey, how many customers I have in Salina, then I can get, but I can't get orders until I go to the order table. So the question becomes, how do I join these, right? So if we see, we've got a customer ID here and a customer ID here. That's how you essentially do joins, right? Whatever columns exist and from one table to another, that's what you use to do joins. So we'll walk through this example and how to do that. And basically, one thing I know that having taught SQL, it gets really abstract. And I would suggest when we do this particular exercise, kind of go back, watch the recording, and try to understand, okay, hey, how did this join happen? What caused the result to come that came back, right? That's how you learn how to code. With SQL, that's not with just like any other language, SQL is no different. Like the more you practice, the more you kind of play around with it. That's how you end up kind of learning more and more with it. So with that, I'll go into actually, let me go into SQLite now. Are folks able to get in here? Are you guys able to come into this this particular web page? Are you guys able to access this page? Anybody had a problem not being able to access it? Okay, great. Awesome. So what we'll do is, so in this, whenever you log into it, they've already got a table created here, demo, right? So, and they've got a sample select statement here that you can run. So what we're going to do is we're going to I mean, if you want to run this, you run it. Basically, this is the data behind it. But what we're going to do is we're going to do a create table statement, right? So to do a create table statement, what we're going to do, you do a create table, and we have a customer as, or actually, I don't think you need an as. We have a customer ID. Sorry. We've got customer ID, customer name, customer address, right? Customer ID. This is the name of the column, and this is actually an integer, right? So within the customer, so what I'm specifying here is essentially, I've got the same data here as in Excel. Basically, what I'm specifying here is, what I'm specifying here in a create table statement is that, hey, these are keywords, create table. Hey, I want to create a customer table. Then you have a parentheses. And within this customer table, I've got a column called customer ID. And in this customer ID columns, all I have is integer numbers, right? It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all I'm going to have in it. There's not going to be any other type of data in here. So, okay. So there's a data type called integer that exists, right? So I'm going to define this as an integer. So actually, let me bring it up to make it more readable here. That is column 1. Then I've got another column called customer name and customer address. These are both, they're they can have characters or they can have numbers in there, like alphabet and numbers. And for something like that, we can use we have customer name. We can use something called varchar, which basically means variable character. And essentially, that's a data type where you can store both numbers and like alphabet. And when we say varchar, and what we really mean by that is it's variable character. So I can specify here that it can be up to 255 characters within it. But if I only use 10 letters out of that, it won't take up the whole 255, right? But essentially, a variable character, then you specify the length you want, and that's what we use for the customer name. And then we've got customer address, and we can do also varchar 255. Okay. Then I do a close parentheses here, and let me execute it. And to execute it, remember, these parentheses are important if you guys are looking at it. You highlight this, using just your mouse, just highlight this code, and then you go click run. And it'll run whatever you've highlighted, right? And once I did that, you guys notice I've got a table here called customer, right? So if I do a select star from customer, basically right now it won't have any data in it, right? So there's nothing in here. Does anybody have questions on this so far? Did people kind of follow that? Did you understand what that was? Isn't SQL the combination of Python and Excel sort of? No. SQL is it's not a combination of Python. Python is an own language. There's, as I mentioned, the construct of a table that's similar to a sheet in Excel, but SQL has nothing to do with Excel as a language. SQL is its own thing. Any other questions on this so far? Yes, you do have to highlight, because if you don't highlight, it'll run everything that's here, right? So if you don't have anything here, I delete this and you just run it, then it'll just run everything on the sheet, right? But let's say if you got some other statement here, select star from demo, here. Let's say I don't want to run the demo table. I just want to run this create table statement. Then you want to highlight it and run it. Any other question? Are folks able to execute this right now. Okay, good. Is this the only place where you can type SQL? So is there an ID for it? Well, this is like alternatively, you have to install an engine that can process your SQL, right? Either you do it in a cloud with an Azure database or AWS, like a Redshift database that gives you like storage and RAM and computing, or you spin up a Snowflake instance and you use that to kind of create tables and insert data. But this is basically a free version. To do it in the cloud, to do it in AWS, you guys would have to create an account. You guys would have to spin up a cluster or an instance. Then you would have to, before we could even start doing this. This is a free tool that you can just go ahead and create a table, and they give you temporary storage. If I do a refresh here, all my data like goes away, right? So don't do refresh here, right? But while this session is running, these guys let you kind of, just create a table, do insert statements, and just practice basic SQL, right? So that's why I did this, because I don't want to waste time folks having to kind of install stuff and create stuff. And for what we're doing, this is more than enough, right? Okay, awesome. So with that, so right now we created a customer table, but remember, we got to insert this data in here, right? We've got customer ID, customer name, customer address. So let's do that. Now I want to insert data, insert into customer values. And I want to do customer ID is 1, right? So what I'm saying is, hey, I want to insert into, this is the customer table. So here goes your table name, right? And when I say values, that means these are the values. So for every column that you have, I have customer, customer name, and customer address. I have to specify the values I want to insert in here, right? So up to this point, insert into customer values. I've got I'm saying that, hey, I want to insert into customer data. And then I've got the parentheses. After the parentheses, I'm actually giving the data that's going to come in here, right? So after the parentheses, I'm actually giving this row here, right? So this row is what I'm specifying next. So I'm saying 1 is the customer ID, Ali Rizwan is the name, 1, 2, 3 is the address. And the way it knows the order, right, is because it's the order of how you created your columns. I created my column customer ID, customer name, customer address. So when I enter the data, the first column is customer ID. The second column that I put is customer name. Third is customer address. So let's do that. So, and then each value entered is comma separated, right? And then for integers, you don't need a comma, or you don't need a quote around it, right? So this is just a number, but with the name, I need a single quote around it, right? And then also around the address, because every time you have letters and numbers combined, you need to give a single quote around it, right? And they need to be comma separate. So I've got 1, customer ID 1, comma. My second value is customer name, which is Ali Rizwan. I'm going to put a single quote and I'm going to put in Ali Rizwan. Then another comma, and then I have a single quote. This is my address, 123 Salina. And then you highlight it and then you run it. Okay, let me see if that ran. Here, select star from customer. See, actually, I accidentally entered it 2 times. My customer Ali Rizwan is entered twice. So that's why it gave me 2. I hadn't thought about talking about it, but the way you can fix this, I can do it in 2 ways. I can, so you guys notice I've got Ali Rizwan in here twice. Do you guys see why that happened? Because I ran this 2 times. I clicked it once, I wasn't sure it ran, then I clicked it again. So because I clicked the same thing again, and after that, I wanted to check what was in there. So I did select star from customer, right? And when I did that, it's got 2 rows in here. right? Did you guys follow that? Okay, great. So, but let's say I want to delete everything that's in here because I don't want Ali Rizwan in here 2 times, right? So there's 2 ways to delete data. One is you want to specify like using a delete statement. And I say delete from customer, just like you have insert into customer, you can have delete from customer. And then you say where, and you can specify a condition. And in here, I'll say customer ID equals 1. Now, everything is customer ID is 1, so it'll delete everything, but that's okay, right? So I can do that if I delete customer ID 1. And then again, I select star from customer. You'll notice we don't have any data in here, right? Like nothing came back. But now I want to enter them 1 by 1. So did you guys follow that? I did delete from customer where ID equals 1, and then I did select star from customer. And when I did that, nothing came back. Like it has like nothing came back here, right? Because I deleted everything. Now I'm going to insert the values back in again, right? So let me do select insert into customer again, click run, and I'll do select star from customer again. See, now I've got 1 row of data. You guys see that? Did you guys follow that? Let me know if you guys. So yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, select star from customer. So so this we actually created a table, right? So we're actually creating the container, right? So think about like a shelf. When you want to create a table, it's like creating a shelf, right? And then the insert, I'm actually inserting data into that shelf. So I'm putting some socks in there, I'm putting some shirts in there, I'm putting whatever in there, right? But so that's the insert into. The select is when I want to take data out of it, right? So when I say select, so let's spend some time on this. When I say select, it's really, I'm specifying the columns. The star means that give me all the columns. Give me customer ID, customer name, customer address. But I could be like, no, just give me customer ID, right? So I say, so just give me this column, or just give me customer ID and customer name, right? I just want these 2 columns. I don't need all the other, I don't need the address right now. Just give me the ID and the name. When you want to take data out of that shelf, I'm using the select. The select is like I'm picking and I'm choosing, like, what do I want to take out? And the way that picking and choosing happens, first in the from, you specify the table you want to take you're specifying the shelf you want to take it out of. In that case, it's a customer. And then the items you want to take out of that shelf is the columns, right? So if I do select, first we did select star, that gave me all 3, but I can do select customer ID, customer name. This is going to give me just these 2. See, it just gave me customer ID, customer name. Now I could also say the equivalent of doing select star from, I could also do customer address. Give me customer ID, customer name, customer address. See, now give me all 3. Star means all, yes. When you do select star, that means everything, anything and everything in that column you want to take out. If you've got data with billions of rows, then you don't want to use star. Star for practice is fine, but when you're in the large system, star is like a bad thing to use. But for this purpose, it's fine. Star means all. So line 11 is actually deleting data. So if I want to delete something from that, so remember how we said it's a shelf, customer is my shelf, but inserting is putting data into it. I'm putting items into it, but then I decide, hey, like you guys saw, I put too much of something into it. Now I want to take something out. Delete from customer is saying, hey, I want to delete from the customer shelf, right? But I don't want to delete everything, right? But I want to specify what I want to delete. So how do we specify what we want to delete? You do that using the columns and the values inside those columns. So I'm saying, hey, I want to delete from customer where customer ID equals 1. That's what I did. In our case, since I only have one customer ID equals 1 value in here, it'll delete everything if I did. But, if you've got all the rows in here, like multiple rows in here, then it'll look for in customer, it'll look at the customer ID column, and it'll only look at where ID equals 1, then it'll delete it, right? So that's what that equal means. Yes, you use double quotes, and but I think that's not like I would say when you're trying to reference certain objects, right? Like sometimes, and it really depends on your engine as well, what type of engine you're running, and double quotes function differently in different engines. But let's say if your table name is like has spaces in it, there's cases where I've seen people use double quotes, but I would say don't worry about double quotes in here right now, right? Just follow these concepts that, hey, I have to create a table. This is how you create a table. If I want to insert, this is how I insert. If I want to select something data, this is what I do to select that data. Because if you're new, you got to want to understand the concepts, right? Like what is this syntax doing? Then we've got then so that what we entered in here, but we want to enter these other tables as well, the other columns as well. I want to enter to John Doe Irving. I'm just going to copy these here. I'm going to paste these here, and what I can do is I can just I have to do an insert every single time. So I'm just going to like copy and paste these here. Insert into customers, and I can just do this, like just put a parentheses in the end. And I need a comma here after every one of these, I need a comma. And then I need a single quote here, Jerry A, Michael J, John Doe, a comma after that. And then let me format it. Maybe it'll be easier to read here. Let's see. Let me add this here, and let me add this here, just to make it easier to read. So because it's tricky when I've got a integer here, then a comma, then I got a single quote, then John Doe, then a comma, and then a single quote and the address. So I've got all these sorted out, so I'm going to highlight each row at a time and insert it and show you guys, that, okay, I inserted this. Then I do a select star again. And now I've got Ali Rizwan and John Doe. Okay. Now I'm going to select the other insert into customer values. Insert again. Then I'm going to do another select. Hey, what do I got in there? I've got 3 rows. Then I'm going to do another insert into customer values. Customer 4. Run. What I have in there is. So now I've got 4 values in here, right? So basically, so far, we created a table, we inserted some values, we deleted some values, and we also did a select statement, right? So, but we only did it from one table, right? So we talked about, we've done the create table, we've talked about data types, we've inserted data, we did some select. We did talk about where, but we talked about it in the context of the delete statement, but let's talk about it in the context of a select, right? Now, let's say somebody's like, hey, I only want, customer ID, 3's data, right? Because I want to look at where customer ID 3 lives. So you can do that by adding a where clause, right? So you can say customer ID, customer name, address from customer, where customer ID equals 3. So once I run this, then see, it only gives me customer ID 3, right? So A where clause is basically a way to filter data, to specify conditions. One thing I'll talk about a little bit here is that when you have, when you've got when the order of precedence and how this statement is processed, first you've got a from clause. That first thing, the select from where the first thing does, this is the first thing it checks. It looks at the from and it says, hey, first thing I will check, because I need to know, where do I get my data? So a select statement, what it's thinking is, hey, I know I got some columns I need to get, and I need to filter some data, but where am I getting that data from first, right? So that's why a select statement, first thing it does, it goes to the from clause. Once it goes to the from clause, it's like, okay, this is my table, fine. Now I need to get, what do I need to filter, right? Because I could have a bunch of columns I need to give, but I'm saying, hey, filter that data first, right? So then after the from, this is the second thing. This is what the SQL is thinking behind the scene. So second thing is, I want to know, what do I filter, right? Here, I want to filter only customer ID 3, right? So that's what it's thinking. First thing it's thinking, hey, where's my table? Where do you want me to get? What's the shelf you want me to go to? Second thing is, what are the things you don't want, right? It's like things that I don't want, which I'm like, hey, customer ID only 3. That's only all I want, right? I don't want anything else. Okay, I'll give you customer ID. Then it goes into the select. Then it gets all the related data associated with the data you specified in the from and the where, right? So that order of precedence, it's a little bit of an advanced concept, but it's important when you are building, when you're trying to figure out performance tuning and stuff. If you've got large tables and you don't put a where clause, let's say you only need some data to do analysis on, but you don't do that where clause, then it'll do the analysis on the whole data set. Like, let's say you've got 10 years of data in your database, but you only really care what happened in the last month. If you write your query on that whole 10 years of data, but you only need the last month, you want to be able to, you want to filter that data so it's got less data to traverse over, right? Because behind the scene, like I said, it's behind the scene. It's a big old file that's the SQL engine is traversing over, right? It's a big old file it's traversing over. So you want to limit the data it has to traverse over. So if I say, I only want customer ID 3, give me that data first. So then it'll ignore these guys, right? It'll ignore these guys. It'll say, oh, I don't need to worry about those. Just go to customer 3 and let me do my analysis on that. So that's a little bit of an advanced concept, but it's just a good thing to know that when a select statement is processed, the first thing is a from, second thing is there's other things that we haven't talked about that also are in the mix, but in these 3 things, the first thing is the from, the second thing is the where, and then the third thing is the select. Statement is the last thing I look at, right? Besides precedent, SQL top to bottom, what does that question mean? I'm not sure I follow. Top to bottom. No, I think you mean by the syntax, like this is process first, this is second, this is third. No, because there's many other clauses we haven't talked about, right? There's a group by clause, there's a having clause, there's a top clause, right? There's many other clauses, and it's not really dependent on where in the sequence the code appears. The order of where the code comes and where it's the precedence where it's processed are 2 separate things, right? Let me give an example, right? Like, and I don't know if that's what you meant, but let me give this example. If I do top 1 from customer, and I think this will work. So if I select these columns from customer, it'll select all 4 rows. But I'm like, no, just give me the top 1, right? If I do this top 1. I I don't think it. So I think in this engine, this doesn't work. The top one doesn't work. Maybe the limit will work. Limit 1. Yeah, I don't think this top one. But anyways, in SQL Server, there's something called a top clause that comes over here, and it only pulls the values that are that it'll do the whole process. It'll do the whole from and the where, but it'll only show what you specified. Like give me the top, 5 rows, 10 rows, or whatever. So, but I think this engine here, it doesn't accept that top. Or it could be I've got these statements here. Let me try it another way, actually. Let me double check. Because maybe these comments I put in here, maybe those are messing it up. But let me try another way. Customer, do this, but then I say select top 1. Let me do this, see if it works. Yeah, see the top in this engine, the top doesn't work. But in any case, in SQL Server, there's something called top, right? That gives you the top rows. Anyway, so last concept, we've got 10 minutes. It's gonna be like I'm cramming a lot in here, but what we've got, and I'm gonna go through this like super quick, guys. We've got the other table, but we've got the order table, right? So we've got the same thing. We've got an order, and we've got I think it's an orders table. We've got order ID in there, which is also an integer, and we've got customer ID, order description, order date, right? So we've got customer ID, and customer ID is also an integer, right? We've got order description, which we said it can be a varchar because it's letters and numbers. We've got order date, which we said is a date. Okay, so this is my orders table. So let's run this. So I've got an order table. There's no data in here. Now I'm going to insert some data. Insert into orders values, and I'm going to basically copy these here, these values here, and I'm going to post them into like this. And what I will do here, see, remember the order ID and customer ID are integers, so I don't need to put single quotes around them, but the order description and even the date, even though it's kind of like a string, but you got to put a single quote around it when you're entering it in. So let me try it with this, make sure this works, and then we'll do the rest. Okay, so let me do a select star from orders. Here we should have one row. See, we got one row in here, and even though we specified it as a date, we put a single quote around it, just like we would do with a varchar, and we've got this data in here. So now I'm going to do it for the rest of them. Let's do this. And I'm going to put single quote here, single quote here, single quote here, single quote here, and we're going to do comma, another single quote. So this gets tedious a little bit, but I don't think it's so complicated. It's a little tedious, but it's not complicated. So I've got my ID, order ID, comma, customer ID, comma, single quote, because I've got a varchar, it's letters and numbers. And then I enter it, and then comma, single quote, then I've got my date. So let's run these one at a time. And then one at a time here, one at a time. And now check our orders. So now we've got all the data in here. Now, see if we go back to our slide. Remember? So now I've got two separate worlds, right? I've got a customer data and I've got order data. I can say, hey, how much did customer ID 1 order, right? Or I can say, where does customer ID, Ali Rizwan live, right? Or where customer ID 1 lives with using the address. But what if I want to know what customer ID 1 ordered and on what day they ordered what they ordered, right? So that data is split, right? Sorry. What if I want to know what customer name Ali Rizwan ordered, on what items they ordered, and what date they ordered those, right? So because order doesn't have the name Ali Rizwan in here, or it doesn't have the address in here, right? So the data is split across 2 separate scenarios, right? 2 separate tables. So if I want to do a join on them, that's where the concept of a join comes in. And that's what we'll cover, and we'll kind of conclude with that. So the way the joins work, the same concept applies. I do a select statement. And the question that I'm asking, is, let's say, what did customer Ali Rizwan order? And when I say what is the order description? What is the order description of items that customer Ali Rizwan ordered, and on what date, right? So you see, this is my question now. Does that make sense? Does the question make sense? I want to know what's the order description of the items that customer Ali Rizwan ordered and what date they ordered, right? So order description for Ali Rizwan and the date. So what does that mean? I want the order description, the order date, and the customer Ali Rizwan. That's what I want. You guys with me? And that's what we're going to try to build this query now. Okay. So we go in here and we do, and I know that we want, order description. We know we want order description. We know we want customer name, right? And we know we want order date. But where's that data now? Order description is in orders. Customer name is in customer, and order date is also in orders. So when I go to from, I say, I can start from, let's say, customer. From customer, and now I want to do a join, right? Because customer doesn't have everything that I need, right? So customer doesn't have everything I need. So I say I want from customer, I do inner join. So I'm saying I need to join customer to something. I do a join to orders. I want to join to orders. So now I'm saying I want to join customer, inner join orders. But on what fields do I want to join? Remember, the customer ID is the same in the two, right? The customer ID is a similar field. Customer ID 1 is in here, and customer ID 1 is in. That's how I can join them, right? So to do that, there's an on. In the on, I'm specifying what columns to join on. So I want to say customer dot customer ID equals orders dot customer ID. Okay. So what just happened, right? I said select order description, customer name, order date from customer, and I'm saying inner join two orders. This is simple, right? But that's not enough. I need to say what columns do you want to join on, and that I'm saying using the on clause. On the on, I'm saying customer.customer ID, meaning that from customer, I know that I want customer ID wherever the customer ID is the same in customer and orders, join those tables, right? So in this case, if I add nothing else, number 1 is the same, number 2 is the same, number 3 is the same. Number 4 doesn't exist in the order tables, right? But I don't want to join 1, 2, 3. I only want customer 1. So the way I can specify that is I say, customer ID, I can say actually customer dot customer ID equals 1. So now I said join customer to orders on customer ID orders.customer ID and customer ID equals 1. So I'm saying now just join these orders to customer, but only where customer ID is equal to 1. So now once we do this, let's run it. See, now this is what it gives me. It gives me the order description, customer name, Ali Rizwan, and order date is January 1st, 2022, which is what we have in here. So customer ID is 1. Order description AAA, item 1, order date 1/1/2022, customer name is Ali Rizwan. And that is super fast. I'm cramming a lot into this. But if you if you kind of go back and watch this recording, we'll share the recording in the WhatsApp group. If you understand this piece, you can construct a table, you can do a select, you do an insert, you can do a where clause, and you can also do some joins. That's pretty cool and pretty simple, as you guys can see as well. Another way I'll also kind of say certain concepts we didn't touch is if I want to aggregate data, right? I want to aggregate data joins. There's left joins, right joins, windowing, CTs. We're not going to cover those, but this is the basic thing you will need to do when you are actually doing any analysis using relational databases. So with that, guys, that's all we got. I guess I'll I know Hannah had to step away, but hopefully this was helpful, guys. And this is my contact information. I know Hannah shared it in the WhatsApp group. This is my email, LinkedIn, phone number. Feel free to reach out, and hopefully this was helpful. Thank you, guys. Take care. Thank you, guys. Bye.